Everyone, and welcome back to the Coco Nomad channel. And this is a channel where I talk about location and financial independence. I share tips, tricks, and techniques that help you make a living in a life. If you are interested in this, please click the like and subscribe button and the notification bell so you can get a reminder whenever a new video comes out. Now, this is another in my series of retrospectives where I talk about what I'm working on. Every 2 weeks, I try to reflect, go back and talk about what's working, what's not working, what things I need to change, and the things that I've learned. I always encourage people to follow along. I think this is a very good practice. I learned it from my job years ago as a software developer as part of like the agile development process. In fact, I will be leading one of these for my team on Tuesday because this is something we do at work as well. So let's go ahead and get started. And let's start with what went well. And the first thing I'm super excited about is I've made the plunge back into investing, and I made my first options trade. This was something that I had avoided like the plague for years because I've heard so many horror stories about people who are trying to trade options, they're trading on margins. I love financial movies, movies like Wall Street, movies like The Big Short, movies like Margin Call. And when you see these kinds of things go the other way, I mean, those are basically morality tales or just like lessons in how when people get greedy and they get a little over their skis and they keep trying to like manipulate the system or change the system, it comes back to haunt them. And so that's one of the reasons why I never really wanted to dive into that. I've had friends who've done this. They've made lots of money, but then they lost lots of money. And for me, it just didn't really sit well. But as I decided to give it another shot, decided to give it another view, and I started watching a lot of people on YouTube and reading and seeing other strategies. So it's one of those things. And one of the people that I follow is Brad Finn on the Average Money podcast. He also has his own channel on YouTube. And I love this analogy he makes. I'm a big sports guy. He says, if you saying you don't like options is like saying you don't like sports, because there's a bunch of different ways underneath that you can do this. So it's like there's a sport for you. And I think I found the sport for me, and it's basically only selling options. Like I'm not getting into anything where I have to use excessive margin. I'm not buying calls. I'm not buying puts. And the strategy that I'm using basically reminds me of like simple poker strategies where I don't chase cards. I'm not chasing premiums. I'm not chasing profits. It's like, if I have the cards and they work out, then I'll get it all in. But if I don't, I don't. It's like, I just don't. I'm not going to do that. I've learned the hard way in doing that kind of thing. And it's just like, it doesn't really work out. So with the options trades, I've been keeping it really simple. I'm investing in companies that I want to own for a long time. I pretty much stick for the most part to companies that pay a dividend, because again, I want that long-term sort of relationship. If I get the stock appreciation in some of them, that's great. If I don't in some, I understand, because it's just the way they're set up. Now, I do own in certain companies. Like one company in particular where I start is Ford. And the reason why I started with Ford is because I'm really hyped about this F-150. Like, the country boy in me is just like, ooh, an electric truck. It's like my nerdiness and my country, and it's like combining. And it's just like, ooh, I really, really want this. But I don't live in the US. I don't drive. So this is like the closest that I'm going to get to owning a Ford F-150 for the time being. Things could change in a couple of years, and they might change in a couple of years. I'm not divulging all of my 3-year plans, but it might be possible that I need a truck to carry myself and maybe a couple other youngins around. So we'll see. But I'm super excited about that. And my first few trades, I made one trade, but it ended up being like multiple trades, and it worked. It's worked out. I will be doing a separate video about the success of those trades and how it worked out for me in the month of September. So I will do a separate investment video where I talk about in detail how that worked out. So super excited about it. Still going on this rabbit hole of web resources, websites, videos. I'm not going to be giving financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not a fiduciary. If you are interested in that kind of stuff, I really highly advise you get someone who's all of those things. You know what I'm saying? Not just a financial planner, not just a financial advisor, but a fiduciary, someone who has your best interest at heart. Because I've had this happen to me in the past where I've had a financial advisor who's really was invested in selling me products at their company. So where they got a commission and they made money, regardless of whether or not I actually profited. And that was one of those things that kind of soured me on investing for a long time. And so I would suggest if you are going to put your dollars to work for you, which I do suggest that you do, however you decide to do it, whether it's crypto, whether it's real estate, whether it's the stock market, whether it's your own business, whether it's a mixture of all of those things, which I'm a huge fan of, then go for it. But make sure you plan, go ahead and make sure when you're working with people who have your best interest in heart. And a fiduciary absolutely has to, they're required to. So enough about that. Let's move on to the next thing that's great. And the second thing is I finally have a backlog of these videos. So there shouldn't be these long gaps anymore where there's like, oh, I made a video. And then there's like another one comes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks later. I was challenged by my accountability partner, my accountability buddy, to get these videos done. And we finally implemented more than just a reward and sort of a penalty that I had to do 2,000 push-ups in one day. And so I just really don't feel like doing 2,000 push-ups. I've failed before and done like 500, but doing 500 push-ups in a day is no problem for me. Doing 500 push-ups in an hour is not a problem for me, but 2,000 in a day, I was just like, okay, this is over the limit. So it really motivated me to not fall behind. So I got on my butt and I recorded all these videos. And so there should be a steady stream. My goal right now is to put out 3 videos a week. And if I continue along this vein, and I probably will have to put those push-ups in as a punishment to get there. But I'm really excited about the option stuff, the investment stuff, and sharing those. So maybe that'll be the other motivation. That'll be the carrot, not the stick, that encourages me to make more videos. And if people like them, I'll keep making them. So we'll see how that goes. So that's another thing that went really well in the past couple of weeks. The other one is some interviews that I've done are finally out. They're published. And I will be sharing links below for both of those. The first one is a interview with a couple of my friends here who teach Spanish, Carlos and Ricardo, on the Speak Like a Mexican YouTube channel. And I did an interview. We were hanging out on Independence Day here last month, and we're having fun. And then either Carlos or Ricardo was like, hey, we should do an interview for our channel. I was like, cool, let's do it. And then as we were going outside, I think Carlos was like, we should do this in Spanish. And I was like, all right, fine. So this is literally like the first time I've actually done a video in Spanish. I was definitely nervous because, again, this is going to go out on YouTube. And so, but I was happy. I sort of jumped over that hump and sort of got over the nervousness and just did it to speak in Spanish. And it's not like Spanish is new to me. I've been speaking it, but like public speaking in Spanish is something I'm still working on. Public speaking in English, no problem. I've done conference talks. I've done lots of public speaking. I've done stand-up. Like, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem getting up in front of a crowd and speaking in English. Speaking in other languages, though, is still one of those things where I'm 10 years old again. So it's like, I'm working on it, try to get better. The second one is Kimmy's podcast, Kimmy Travels. And we talked a few weeks ago about just the travel lifestyle and my particular story and how I sort of found this lifestyle, being a digital nomad and traveling around full time. And it was not the initial plan. Like, I didn't start out wanting to do this or planning to do this. I thought I would travel around the world for a year with a remote year program that I did, have a good time, and then go back home. And that didn't happen. Everything started changing about 3 months in, like everything, my whole world just went whoop, upside down. So I talked about that experience and where I am now and all along the way with her on her podcast. So again, I'll drop a link below. You should absolutely listen to it. I'm also one of the few people who stands for Spirit Airlines. I know Spirit Airlines gets a lot of grief, but I've had positive experiences with them, and one incredibly positive experience when I left Colombia last year during the pandemic, and just really salute like the work that they did at the airport that people just don't acknowledge. Like, they just don't acknowledge, like, you know, you look at the price, you buy the airline ticket, and it's fun to say there's no frills and everything like that. But even on that regard, it's just like, come on, man, you pay $39 for a plane ticket. It's not even, train tickets are more expensive. You take an Amtrak. Trust me, I've done it. I've done my little, one of my journeys or remote work was coding by train, where I took a train to try to code from North Carolina all the way out to Colorado and back. And I promise you, like, the issues that I encountered on a train were far greater than any issues I've had in an airport. So, like, cut these airlines some slack, man. And people are doing a lot of work, and they work really hard. And then the final thing that I want to talk about that went well was my first therapy session. I think I mentioned this a couple of times that I hadn't been in therapy in years, like over a decade, and finally went back and had a really great first session with my therapist. It was kind of, first one was always kind of like a feeling out, just kind of what you want to do. And my focus is different this time. There was a lot of really bad things happening in my life. The first time years ago, I lost my father and I lost my grandmother and my grandfather, and I had an engagement that didn't work. And so I was just like not in a great place. Whereas this time it's more about where I'm going. Like my plans for family in the next few years, my plans for my business in the next few years, and just sort of like talking through the success and just wanting to make sure I'm not putting these limits on myself. And I will share some details about that particular aspect in a future video, because I'm almost 50 years old and I'm just starting with this whole FIRE movement. And I wanted to talk about what that means, like kind of starting from scratch. Like I have a very, very small portfolio for retirement investment, all of this stuff, after having done all these other things before. And I really wanted to get into like, what does this look like for someone, anyone who's either starting small or starting late or both, which is me, this guy right here. So, but one funny thing that happened in the session, as soon as we started talking, it's the first time we hadn't talked over email, which we had, or messaging, which we had done for quite a while before the session. Immediately his accent stood out. And I was just like, oh, where are you from? And then he's just like, guess. And I'm like, I'm gonna go with Barbados. I think you're from Barbados. And he was. And so it was just funny. He's just like, you got it here. You got it. I was like, I used to pride myself on being really good at accents. And this one was like a nice sort of like win, because for a while it started not to be so well. I don't know, but I just love it. I watch a lot of television movies from all over the place. So it's just like when I can pick out voices, like voice actors, I'm really, really good at recognizing voice actors when they're doing like animated movies or animated TV shows. So it's just like, it made me feel good. It's like, got it. It was like, I wasn't wrong. So all in all, mostly just really positive 2 weeks, and just really wanted to just like take the moment. And this is what I encourage people to do, why I do this. Acknowledge and celebrate your small wins. Give yourself credit for the things that are going well. It's really easy to get trapped in negativity and beating yourself up over the stuff that you didn't do or the things you didn't get done. And you really need to balance that out with acknowledging the things that you are doing well. You're on a path. It takes time to achieve your goals. You're not going to get there overnight. So take a step back, shout out the wins, and then get back to work. And I know it's really cliche in football or sports. I mean, mostly for me it's football, but like you get a win one week, you celebrate it, and the coach will say in the press conference, yeah, we're gonna celebrate this win, and then Monday we're gonna go back to work. And that's kind of like how I approach it, right? It's like I acknowledge the wins, you chalk it up, then go back to work. And I think everybody should do that. Maybe Tuesday, go back to work. I don't know, however you want to do it, but just acknowledge and give yourself credit for the good things that you've done so far. Now, we also have to deal with the things that aren't going well. And that leads us into the second point where we say, what didn't go well? And that's where I talk about for me. Work was really, really busy. It has been for the last couple of weeks. There have been some annoying bugs in the code. And it's not even stuff that we wrote. iOS 15 came out, and there's just like some navbar nastiness that I have really been trying to dive in and dissect. The way that the navbar coloring and behavior happens between iOS 14 and 15 has just really been the bane of my existence for the last couple of weeks. And so I still have a couple of bugs. We got one fixed on late Friday, actually. And this is because of teamwork. So even in this negativeness of what didn't go well, there's some positive stuff in here. The team pulls together. Just like I throw up the bat signal, we jump in a Zoom, and one or two or three of us or four of us will pile in to try to, just resolve it. Because sometimes it's just a matter of another set of eyes, or one person knows one thing. And this is exactly what happened on Friday. I had figured out one change that I needed to make, and then one of my teammates had seen something else. And so we put those literally two lines of code together to solve the problem. I came with one line, they came with the second line, and then we were able to fix one of the bugs that we had. Still have one that's left. Don't know how that one's going to resolve. We might have to live with it for a while, but that's how teamwork is. We pile in together, we chip in together, and we get things done. The second thing that didn't go well, but also has a positive thing, is my practice. I think I mentioned this before in the previous retrospective, that I've just been having trouble with practicing the guitar. But in my last lesson with my instructor, my teacher, Rob Mills, he got me he gave me a different perspective, and then we talked through some things, and he gave me some drills, and he gave me some little exercises, and it's really helped me to rethink how I approach practice, that whether it's the time for practice. One big one is I did have to start treating it like every other thing that's an appointment, just like the lesson itself. I have to put it on a schedule. I fought calendars for so long because I used to work in a job where my calendar was full. I worked for a big law firm, and my calendar was full of billable hours I had to bill to clients, and I only had 30 minutes of administration time. And I really hated that. It did not work for me at all because it just went against all of the way that I like to work and get things done. But it's the job. And sometimes you got to make compromises, and that's how that works. So for me, when I left there and went back into consulting, and then I started working remotely and had all this control over my time, I really fought and bristled against calendars. If you put something on my calendar, it's just something of hairs in the back of my neck, just stand up. But I had to stop that because this is a new time, and that's not what this is about. I'm allocating time and setting time to say, I want to practice guitar, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm creating that space for that practice so that I can get better. So there we go. And the third thing that didn't go well actually didn't happen to me. If you are on YouTube, a friend of mine that I met in Colombia years ago is Carlton from Carlton's Travel Adventures, and I'll link his YouTube channel. He came through and we hung out. We went to a place I like to hang out in here in a neighborhood called Condesa here in Mexico City. And I don't go often, but when people come around and want to hang out, I like to go there because I have pool tables, and I like to play pool when I have someone to play with. And so we went there, and we were playing, and we were talking about everything. I was talking about investing and stuff. He signed up for Robinhood and got a free stock, and I got a free stock. I'm going to drop a link for Robinhood down there as well. I know some people are like, oh, Robinhood, but I'm just like, you get a free stock, sell it, take the money and go. It doesn't really matter, if you don't want to trade. But I find it just really easy to trade options on there versus some of the other platforms. So in that regard, I think it's fine. But we were hanging out, and he had the worst experience with taxi cabs here in the city, which I never take. When he asked me before he came in, he said, hey, I'll be arriving at the airport. What should I do? Should I take a cab? I'm like, you should take Uber. Uber is the easiest thing. Now, sometimes I'll take the Metro, but I have a Metro card. Let me see. Metro card, really easy to use. I can top it up right at the station. It's not hard to use, but he doesn't live here, so I get it. And I'm like, we'll take an Uber. When he got here, and he's like, well, I didn't have any minutes on my card or with his SIM card. He couldn't use his phone to order the Uber, to which I always tell people it's incredibly cheap to get a SIM card. You can get one in the airport. It doesn't cost much. Get a cheap SIM card, throw it in your phone, use Uber. Didn't want to do it. He's like, nope, I'll take a cab. So he got the shuttle first. He got a shuttle, which was cool. I've gotten shuttles before from the airport. And if your phone's not working, and my phone wasn't working once, I caught a shuttle. Not the most inexpensive thing, but it's not a ripoff. But the cabs, I don't mess with. Playa del Carmen, occasionally I will take a cab, but the only chance, usually you're only going to get ripped off if you catch a cab at the bus station there. Here in Mexico City, I don't mess with cabs at all. Never gotten in one, never hailed one, never been interested. I don't care if I have to go 45 minutes. I will walk before I catch a cab. Even if it's raining, I will wait, call an Uber. I'm not taking a cab. He had the worst experiences with cabs, including one. He has a video where he says a cab driver tried to kidnap him. And he says he's never coming back to Mexico City, which I think is a shame. This is an amazing city. I love it here. I come back all the time. Like, this is probably my 4th or 5th time here in the last 3 years, and maybe 3 or 4 years. And it's just an amazing place. And I encourage people to come in here and check it out. And I wouldn't let an experience like cabs, which I advise not to take in the first place, to be a problem. So if you're watching this and you're thinking about Mexico City, I'm a huge fan. Don't take cabs. Get a SIM card. Or if you have an international phone or Google Fi or whatever, you can take Uber. And I know Uber gets a lot of flack in different places, and they have some shady practices in some places. Nothing compared to these cabs, I promise you. So don't take a cab. So that's going to end that particular section, and we'll get into basically what have I learned. And I think the biggest thing right now, the biggest lesson is a single lesson, and that is patience in the midst of excitement, because that's exactly what happened with these options trades. I got a little over my skis. I made a few trades. They all worked out well, made some money. And so I'm like, oh boy, if it works out this well for this thing, maybe I'll do this other thing. And I'm like, I really tried too hard to make money too quickly. And I think that was a mistake. I got into a deal with a trade with a company called Riot, who mines cryptocurrency. And I went long. So that part was okay. But I was lured, like the siren song, like by the premium. I was like, ooh, I can make $1,615 like right now. And it's like, no, that's not how you should be thinking about this stuff. So I was able to exit with a small profit. So I realized the next day that that's what that was. It's like, I got a little excited. I need to pull back. So I ended up selling or buying back. I sold, because I don't buy options. I sold an option contract and I bought it back to close it out for a small profit of $15. Just realizing that just like, that is not a good use of my capital. That's not the approach I want to take. And I don't want to set a precedence of my investment strategy going forward doing that. So the lesson was, don't get too excited. This was a new thing. And that tends to happen with new things, right? You get into something new. It's like, oh, I'm watching this new show and I can binge watch it. So I'll watch all the episodes instead of just like taking your time and watching one episode at a time every week or whatever. And that sort of reminded me of that. So it's like, oh, I need to be patient. I need to slow down. And that's exactly what I ended up doing. So that concludes what have I learned, and we move into what still puzzles me. And the two things are basically around investing right now, because it's the thing that I'm sort of focused on. I mean, I'm not going to count the hazy looking nav bar thing in iOS. I don't understand why that's happening. I'll get to that sometime. Let's stick with investing. Some of the advanced option strategies, I've been going through and watching a lot of these videos and paying, it's like these spreads and people have these different names, Iron Condor, Iron Man, Iron whatever. I'm just like, oh, this is a lot. And a lot of it's still confusing and I'm not comfortable with it. So I will continue to learn, but I probably won't be touching any of those strategies for the foreseeable future. Probably not even before 2022, maybe even further out than that. I really want to get comfortable with this strategy called the wheel, which is just selling covered calls and selling cash secured puts, and then that's it. You know what I'm saying? Minimizing my downside and just taking a slow approach. The place where I am trying to be aggressive and that I am focused on being aggressive is earning, like working these mini projects that I can do outside my primary job, increasing revenue streams, and work, and hyper savings. So saving as much as I can. That's it. That's where I want to be aggressive. I do not want to be aggressive in my investment strategy, so that's not what I'm doing. The second thing is just how buying power is calculated on Robinhood. It's a little confusing because I'm looking at it sometimes, and I made a deposit. I made 2 deposits to like have some more money to invest, and my buying power didn't make sense after I made some trades. I was like, wait a minute. Like, if I have the collateral, why is my buying power dropping down? So I still need to read a little bit more and understand more how that's working so that I can maximize my buying power in my investment strategies to make sure that I'm doing the right things the right way. So that's it. And then that ends with what's next. For me, my switch, now that I've made a bucket of videos and I can like slowly release those over the next few weeks, I'm going to focus on my website and my blog. I have really not given it the attention that it needs. And I have the same topics. I just need to convert them over into written form. And so I'm working on the written form for that content and for everything that I've already done on video and audio. And then the second thing is I would like to kickstart the newsletter again. I don't think it's going to be bi-weekly. I think it may have to be monthly right now, and that I can maintain the monthly cadence because that's only 12 a year. And that's not a lot of time because I'm doing these other projects and it's just taking so much time to invest in the investing and the coding projects and making videos. So I really have to recognize that as much as I love to do a newsletter every week, It's just like, and that's how I started. Just like, I can't keep that cadence. And setting that expectation, I'd rather not disappoint people. So I need to sort of renegotiate that contract, update terms and service, as you will, and do a monthly. So that is where I am here on October, the beginning of October. I'm really happy to be here in the city of Mexico City. Super ecstatic. So I'm at the halfway point. And so I'll be leaving in November, and I'm probably going to be pretty sad when I leave because I've been having a really good time just being in the city, in the neighborhood. I love being here. The job is going really well. People are coming to visit. I've had friends and family visiting, and I actually have more family visiting in the next few weeks. And more friends visiting actually in the next few weeks. So I'm super excited about showing the city and sharing it. And then I have some friends locally too that I still haven't seen yet, that I really, really, really working hard to try to clear out some time in my schedule so that we can also spend some time together, because there are quite a few people I still haven't seen here and I need to see them before I leave. So that's where I am right now. I have some travel plans coming up, but I'm still trying to firm that up, and they could be pretty big and pretty exciting. Some new countries I haven't been to, but I don't want to, again, like the investing in the excitement of that, get ahead of myself, get over my skis and fall over. So I'm going to just kind of temper that. Got to read some news, got to do some research. In fact, I will probably make a video about how I plan my travel, where I go through and evaluate on a country by country basis where I'm going to go, why I'm going to go, and how I'm going to set that up, because I think that also might be helpful. If you think that would be a helpful thing, go ahead and drop a comment and say you'd like to see a video about how you plan to travel, and that'll give me more motivation and let me know this is not a waste of time to do that, that I'm the only person that's interested in that, because I don't need to make a video for that if I'm the only person interested. As always, thank you so much for supporting this channel. If you think it's something that's helpful to others, please share it. I really appreciate it. This is a small channel. I need all the help I can get, and I'd like to continue making videos like this. Otherwise, have an amazing day, and I will talk to you next time. Cheers.